Hello, everybody, and it is fantastic to be here with you today. I am very excited about having this opportunity to start a conversation around the arrival of AI and robotic humanoids into the workforce. So one of the things that I am really eager to have this conversation about is how AI and robotic humanoids are disrupting the world of work, or are they? So wherever you're joining from around the world, whether it's morning for you or night for you or the middle of the day for you, I am absolutely thrilled to have you here. My name's Diana Wilusz, and I am from the HR world and the business world combined. My passion is around the intersection of humans and technology, and has always been in that space. So let me just give a few statistics just to get our conversation started here. And I'm really excited about this being an interactive conversation. Did you know a recent Pew study that just came out spoke about the backgrounds of individuals and how we're forecasting the disruption of AI across different professions, right? So let me give you a couple of statistics here. So those who have a bachelor's degree or greater, all right, 27% of those jobs or those individuals were expecting that AI is going to disrupt their work. Okay, now disrupt is a bit of, it's one of those words that is, is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? Well, we'll get to that in just a moment because that's what this conversation is all about, right? So 27%. Now, what's interesting is to contrast that 12% of positions or individuals who have a high school degree or less, those only 12% of those individuals are expected to have their work disrupted. Okay, so it's an interesting little factoid there. And I share that with you as we're breaking into this topic. And, like you just said, Vashti, this is one of the most happening topics right now. Right? This is the conversation about how work is ultimately going to be transformed by the emerging technology, and in many cases, the revolutionizing technology of artificial intelligence, whether it is generative artificial intelligence or it's humanoid artificial intelligence, robotics, right? There's no question that work will be disrupted, all right? And again, I'm not placing any good or bad connotation around the word disruption. In fact, I think for probably most of you that are joining the conversation this morning, or this evening, or tonight, wherever it is, our lives right now are being impacted and affected by technology, right? We are coming together from around the world around this amazing topic. And so for me and for you joining in this conversation, I think that it is incredibly powerful that technology has brought us to the spot where we're all here together and it's second nature to us. And as we have additional technology and additional understanding of AI and how we can incorporate AI into our work, I think that that makes this a really profound and exciting conversation. So let me give you another little icebreaker here, and I'll also share a little bit more of my background and what got me to this spot. So 60% of the jobs that exist today did not exist in the year 1940. Think about that. 60% of the types of jobs. And so I think it's fair to say that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, maybe even less than that, that again, a very large percentage of the jobs that we know today will no longer exist, or they will be transformed dramatically. And that is really exciting for us. It's exciting for us whether we are a leader in a business, whether we're a CEO, an entrepreneur, or we're head of marketing, or we are in human resources, as I know many of you are, and really thinking about how do we embrace this? How do we adapt to this emergence? So as I mentioned, my background, I came from the human resources world, and I was in human resources in the technology environment. And I started out there, the world of computers, the world of semiconductors, really the world of hardware. And very quickly, the world of software emerged in there, and it transformed the way much of our work was done. We moved from physical desktop hardware computers to information in the cloud. And that was a big shift right at that point in time. And the change and the acceleration of technology we've all seen has just continued to accelerate. And now we're in this amazing world where AI and generative AI tools such as ChatGPT, Cloud AI, those types of tools are now being introduced and being embraced and being utilized more and more so. So part of what this conversation is about as we continue on is going to be, how do we use those technologies? How do we use them as HR professionals? How do we use them as leaders in our organizations? And also, what are the things that we will ultimately need to adapt in order to embrace and encourage the use of those technologies? Now, some of you may remember back in the early 2000s when the internet was introduced, it was just starting to take root. The late 90s and the early 2000s, it was just starting to take root. And some of that conversation was very similar, that it was going to be a disruptive technology, that many, many jobs would be lost, and that, everything would just transform, right? And in fact, it was in that window that we again saw many jobs being created, different jobs, new work, and the embrace of that technology. And now we pretty much need it to connect and to live, and can't imagine life without it. So let's keep that foundation in mind. As I moved through my technology career, my human resources career, my career also followed the technologies. And that's one of the things that I want to encourage also in our conversation is going to be, how are you embracing AI? How are you embracing the generative technologies? How are you embracing robotics? And where are the areas that you see it affecting your life and your work and your organization's work? An incredibly important topic. So this is the conversation. And by virtue of my exposure through my career of human resources and technology, I absolutely just fell in love with that intersection. And I realized that in that intersection, there is a great opportunity for us as HR practitioners, as leaders in our businesses, as CEOs, as entrepreneurs. There's a tremendous opportunity for us at that intersection to be able to embrace and proactively transform the world of work. That's exciting. And this is why I'm really excited about everyone who's joined today and everyone who's going to be in this conversation with us. Now, as we continue in the conversation, I'm going to be bringing some people into the discussion, some people who are on the leading edge of these technologies, some people who are leading thinkers in terms of organizations and transforming organizations. Some names that you may have heard as well. Some people that you may even recommend, because I'll be coming to you for ideas and suggestions on people that we should bring into this conversation so we can hear and we can see, what are they doing? What are they thinking? What are their opinions? And we want to really dig into this topic. What's the good? What's the bad? What are the challenges? For example, one of the things that I realized, and a couple of really interesting articles coming through Harvard Business Review, really talking about how do we remain competitive in our roles, given the revolutionary impact that generative AI is having in the workforce, ChatGPT, for example, Cloud AI. So the impact that those tools are having, and also the impact that robotics are having. So how does somebody remain competitive in the work environment? Now, I heard a really powerful quote, and love for you to just jot this down In fact, I mean, one of the best ways for us to capture what we're learning is just take some quick notes, jot these down, and this conversation is going to continue. This quote I've heard a number of times, and it is so impactful. It is, AI is not going to take your job, but it's the person who knows how to use AI that's going to take your job. All right. So think about that. It's the person who knows how to use AI. So let's talk a little bit about ways to use AI. Just a few things that I've seen and a few things that I've been successful in doing as well. As an HR practitioner, some of the things that we're often asked to do is to create a new program, is to design a new solution, is to come up with something new for a performance review system, for example. Okay. Well, the truth is that we as HR practitioners can turn to AI as a way to jumpstart and also as a way to accelerate our use and accelerate the impact of our programs. So imagine this. If we go into ChatGPT as an example, and I'd love to just see in the comment section, how many of you have used ChatGPT already, have already used it to help design a program? If you go into ChatGPT today and you put in a simple command, you tell it that you are a senior HR executive and that you have the responsibility of creating a new performance management program, and it's for an organization that is 200 employees in size. It's made up of primarily scientists and engineers, and that you would like that performance review program to be constructed so that it can be executed once every quarter. If you give those kinds of instructions to ChatGPT, you'll be amazed at the response that you get. You will get a very precise outline of a performance review program that is designed specifically for the type of audience that you described and the context that you provided. So for example, one of the things that we'll learn in a future discussion is the type of keys that you can put into a script or into a command for generative AI in order to get that AI to help you design a program, design a solution. Now, I chose something very simple, a performance management program. You could actually choose a business strategy. And again, give it context, give it a persona, give it some explicit instruction and guidance, and let it generate a business plan for you. That's revolutionary, because what it does is that it allows you now to leverage AI as a baseline for you to bring your expertise. And that's the differentiator. When we ask the question, how to remain competitive, that very question that is brought to us by the HBR article, when we think of that, the differentiator is your expertise, your discernment, your ability to discriminate between what is relevant and what is not, and how to actually create new. All right. So one of the other things that we want to be thinking about, give you that little nugget there. One of the other things we want to be thinking about, and we're going to continue our conversation around, is how do we manage generative AI in the workforce? So there's the first component of how do we use it? How do we leverage it? How do we use it for ourselves to remain competitive? And how do we use it for ourselves to generate even more profound and more impactful results? All right. The second question is, how do we manage generative AI in the workplace? So in managing generative AI in the workplace, now we start to think about AI as a reference tool. And so we said, your question's great. Can we say AI is dangerous? Well, you could, In fact, let me give you just a little bit of a nugget around that. And here's another statistic for you. So USA Today recently ran an article, and in that article, they referenced a Pew study. And in that Pew study, the same one that was sharing about exposure to AI, that same study told us that currently, as an emerging technology, that 16% of the respondents felt it would be helpful. 30% actually have the impression currently that it will be both helpful and hurtful, that there are components that we need to learn to manage, and that it will also be helpful. Here's one of the things I think is magical about the statistics. One more nugget here, 32% are unsure. So just like any other emerging technology, those who have gotten in to know the technology more, to learn how to utilize the technology, to learn how to keep it in the context of benefiting, have found that it is very helpful. Left unmanaged, left, as I say, to its own devices, okay, that particular technology could be detrimental if we were to allow it just to run. However, what's beautiful is that more and more, we don't make it dangerous. We leverage it. We utilize it. Okay. So Rajiv, that's absolutely right. It depends on how we use it. You hit it right on. So the way that we use the technology, that is how we will bring it to effort and to perspective for us. All right. So this is a really important conversation. And this is why having all of us in this room together and others that will bring into the discussions to see and to hear what are some more of those leading thought perspectives, right? Being in this conversation. What are other organizations doing? What are leaders doing? How can we leverage the technology? How can we leverage the technology to build community? How can we ensure that others are learning how best to use the technology? That's in big part what my why is. What my big passion is in this conversation is how can we take this incredible, powerful technology that is in its infancy and emerging today? How can we take these technologies of generative AI and humanoid robotics, those two technologies, and bring them actively into our workforce to help accelerate our workforce, leveraging the tools that we have, leveraging the tools that are being brought to us. This is, as was mentioned earlier in the comments, this is one of the most important conversations for us to be having today. So with that, with our focus being on leveraging this AI revolution, and in particular, leveraging it in the space of human resources, because that's what we're about, is optimizing our team, being able to bring the best forward and using all the tools that are available to us to do that. So how do we as HR practitioners do that? And how do we as leaders in our organizations do that? It is an opportunity to differentiate what we're doing out in the world. I love that, Bill. You know, I love that you're on the leading edge of this conversation. And it's what is a really important one. And I'm so glad you're here to be in this. And we're going to be getting together once a week and continuing this discussion. And I'll be looking for people like yourself, Bill, to come into the conversation, to share an opportunity for us to talk and to be able to share what you're seeing on the leading edge. What's the differentiator out there? What are some of the ways that we can help others learn to embrace a technology? So when we think about that, some of the possibilities from an HR perspective, you know, one of the possibilities that I see is that AI gives us the ability to lead thought in the conversation, to lead at the table in the organization. It gives us the ability to very quickly generate new concepts and new ideas to bring into the discussion. As HR practitioners, some of you may remember in your very early days, HR, we wanted a seat at the table. We weren't there in the discussion of the business strategy. AI and generative AI gives us a way to very quickly link what we do in HR to the business. And for me, I'm incredibly passionate about the role of HR in a business. We are uniquely positioned as a profession. We are uniquely positioned to interact with every single aspect of the business. So AI, ChatGPT, for example, or Cloud AI, those tools actually can help us in designing and learning the language to communicate effectively with any other person in the business. What do I mean by that? So, for example, if I need to have a conversation with one of our board members, and I know that that board member has a very strong accounting orientation, that they are very analytical in their mindset. And for them, it's important to see certain bits of information ahead of time, or I know a bit more about that persona. I can actually put in my ChatGPT profile or in my Cloud AI profile, I can actually put in there again the persona that I'm going to be speaking to, the context and topic that we're going to be talking about, and I can ask for recommendations on how I can approach that conversation. Powerful. So very quickly, we can start to see how a tool like that, a generative AI tool like that, can help me be more effective in my conversations and in my influence within the business. That's just one example of how we can utilize this type of technology as an HR professional. Some of the other things that I think are also beneficial, but Venshi, that's a great point. It's extremely helpful for dealing with employees as well. Some of you might be in organizations, for example, that are a combination of information skills and then technology or manufacturing. And it's a very different kind of conversation if you're talking to somebody in leadership or you're somebody that is a manager of a marketing organization or an employee in marketing versus an employee who is in manufacturing and maybe running the third shift of a manufacturing line. Very different ways to approach things. So it's just such a great example, Vanchi, on how you can leverage these kinds of technologies, how we can all leverage these kinds of technologies. And that's just in the work environment, right? I mean, one of the other things, that's a great point, Lisa. It's also very powerful. You can take an email. Let's say you've had a situation where you've been in an email dialogue with somebody and you're sorting through how best to respond and how best to navigate. And you're not quite sure where the person might be coming from, because we all know that email sometimes can be like one of the worst communication platforms, right? You can take the content of that email, drop it into Cloud AI, and you can ask it to coach you on what that person might be seeing or feeling, what's the sentiment, and how might you respond, with your interest being to move the conversation forward. So even leveraging technology to be a coach. And again, remember, the technology has a place. It is a resource. That's why I'm super excited about this conversation. Again, it's the intersection between humanity and technology, and leveraging these technologies to move us forward. I love what was said earlier in the chat also about how can we use AI, generative AI, and even robotic humanoids for that matter someday. How can we use these and how will it affect e-commerce? Isn't that just a natural blend? So I think we will take that on as one of our next topics. What is that intersection? And how can we leverage the technologies in the e-commerce world? Which, let's face it, that's where most of our business gets done these days. So from that perspective, we're going to take that as an upcoming topic. I really appreciate that suggestion. And I'd love to see other suggestions in the chat here, topics you want us to drill in on. This is an ongoing conversation. We're going to get together every week and we're going to do a deep dive into these topics. We're going to zero in on topics that are relevant to you and their application. So our guest speakers will be those people who are applying these technologies. Yes, we'll have some theory, we'll have some context. We will absolutely be supported by data, and we will have very real application examples that will continue to give all of us here in this group the mentorship and the coaching and the things that we can benefit from to bring these technologies to bear in our organizations. You know, that's a great point. You know, this question from Vancy again, you know, is this technology kind of helping us or helping HR to standardize processes? You know, my opinion, and I want to bring somebody on to talk with us all about that, to share another perspective on it or share their perspective on it. My opinion is that the technology is helping us to baseline around standardized processes. And it's actually taking it and giving us a platform to go even further. Okay. So there's a lot more that can be done with AI. And when you take the information, build your baseline. I mean, loop back to that conversation or that example that I gave you around the performance review tools. So what I got out of ChatGPT as an example, and I used that as a baseline, basically what it gave me was a foundation. I was able to take that based on my work with the organization and up-level it and advance it, and actually think about what could be different, what could be better, what could make it stand out even more so. So that just happens to be one way that I think about the AI piece. It challenges us, right? It gives us information and it gives us faster access to information in a very structured way. Incredibly powerful dialogue that we can have with the AI. Now, I've only spoken about tools like ChatGPT and Cloud AI. There are a number of other tools we're going to talk about and dive into together, and also the context. That's why we want to bring people into this conversation. So we're going to be doing this once a week, same time every week. Get back together. We'll have guests on our conversation. We're going to bring them in on topics that are of interest to you. Please take a moment. We'd love to have you join our next conversation. So take a moment, please. Just drop in the chat, brainstorm. What are some of those topics you want to dive into? What's burning for you right now? Put those in there. We're going to capture those. And when we come back around next week, we're going to start deep diving. We'll continue to put information out on LinkedIn. You'll have information. You'll be able to see what we're doing. We've got a newsletter that's going to be coming out as well. We'll go ahead and we'll put the link in the chat so that you can also join in on our newsletter. What I think is really exciting is that we're going to be having these conversations. We're going to be here together in these conversations. So from that standpoint, I am absolutely thrilled that you were able to join us today, to be here, to be a part of this conversation. And I thank you so much for your comments, your ideas. Absolutely awesome. E-commerce is on the short list. Bill, great points. I would love to talk to you more and have you part of this conversation live with us so we can spin this up even more so. It is such an exciting time for us in the HR world. It's an incredibly exciting time for us in the leadership world. And this is the intersection. This is the conversation that we've been waiting to have. It is truly the intersection between humanity and technology. I'm really excited to have you in this discussion and so excited to see you next week. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you again next week. Take care.